I've spoken to you before about the inner critic, but just want to revisit that again because I feel that it's really important to recognise what's going on. Have you ever would have mentioned, no doubt, that the voices in your head and things that are said? So, for instance, if you're thinking about going for a job or having an interview, applying for a job, and you have multiple thought processes such as go for it, you can do it, no you can't, you'll be rubbish, you'll embarrass yourself, you can't do this, you're rubbish, no one's going to hire you. It just and that debilitates you. Have you ever thought of that? Has that ever happened to you? I know it's happened to me, and it's really overwhelming and debilitating, as I say. And it's just to recognize that that is not necessarily your voices, that is things that you've been told or experienced or heard as a young person. And it's to recognize that that's no longer suitable or relevant for this time, for this moment in your life. They may have been times that that was needed for protection, but now that's no longer needed. And so for you to be able to recognize the difference for what it served its purpose for initially and what was told and what's authentic for you. You have qualities that are amazing for the world, and to be held back by that inner critic or those voices or that should I, shouldn't I, it is not helpful to move forward. And so that's why I feel it's really important to think about what goes on in your mind, in your daily life, even when you're even considering what you want for dinner. Should I have this, or but they don't want that and they don't like this, and should I do this and should I do that, and the shoulds, should I do this, this constant internal battle of what is right or wrong, or of what you want to then do, this overwhelming sensation and feeling and thought process ultimately of what we should do moving forward or in that present moment. And as I say, it can hinder us, and I know it's certainly hindered me in not moving forward with things that I've wanted to accomplish. And yet I found that I needed to make friends with them, understand where they've come from, and see where the threads of that has come from. And it takes me back to my childhood, as always, as all of this does. And if you watch me regularly, you will always go back to your childhood. And so it's about not necessarily always the bad things that happen in your childhood. It's about the positive things that happen in your childhood as well, that has made you the person you are today. But those imprints that we have, those things that are said to us or we absorb within an environment, stays with us. And so to be able to recognize what those things are and what those thought processes are, even if you were told to always do your best at school, achieving is the best possible way to be, is that the way you want to be? It's about challenging those inner critics, those thought processes that has been almost programmed into you. And is that what you want? That's the thought process. That's the thing to think about. Is that you, or is that something that and you want to change? And I know that is really difficult to do that. And I know that from personal experience. Of course it is. You can't stop those automatic thought processes or programmings that have come in, that has been part of your environment, because the younger years are so influential and so impactful. And having a different opinion or a different thought process or a different action is really, really tough to do. And so it's recognizing catching those thoughts and who do they belong to and what is it you want to do. And for being able to recognize whether or not they're for you, And if they're still serving you, we do these things because they serve a purpose, because the body is only interested in survival. So we have to have these thought processes or survival instincts to survive, ultimately. And once we're in a safe place and in a safe environment, we can start to explore whether or not these are still serving us in a positive way. And that is why I'm so passionate about the inner critic, really, is knowing if it's still valid. Is that thought process still valid? Do you not want to be able to move out of maybe a current situation or thought process? Then it's really important to catch them, to see who they really truly belong to, and if they're your own values and goals and purpose in life, which is difficult to do, but really important to be able to change the trajectory of your purpose and life. And so getting in touch with your inner critics, your inner voices, how you have an inner dialogue with yourself is key to be able to help recognize what's important for you. So my inner critic and voices, I've had to dig deep, and which is the same for everybody, to really know where they manifested, come from, reasons for, and ultimately they have done it for survival. And because our bodies are only interested in survival, they don't care. Our bodies and our brain are the back part of our brain, the animal part of the brain, doesn't care about how we feel. Interested in survival and also less damage to the body and also reproduction. That's all our bodies are interested in. And so it doesn't care how I feel, how I think. It just wants to do what it is I need to do to survive. And so if I needed to survive, obviously, as we always do, but in such a deprived way that my upbringing was, I had to take on certain perspectives, thought processes, to ensure that my safety, or survival should I say, was paramount. And it wasn't, I mean, the mind and body decides what it's going to do, and what it then creates is these thought processes that we're not good enough, we don't deserve, we can't be better, we're all of the derogatory things that we say to ourselves. And I've said this before, which is we wouldn't speak to our worst enemy the way we speak to ourselves. And I know that for sure, although say that can't be sure of anything. However, that's my experience. And so we really do berate ourselves so terribly that it is devastating to our growth and our survival. No, not our survival, sorry, for our growth. And so we accept the limitations that has been put upon us, which isn't the correct way. Our limitations were put on us by others who had limitations themselves. And so to be able to recognize that is difficult, for one, and two, even more difficult to try and change. But I think it's really important for me to say to you that it's crucial to listen to what's going on inside your head, inside your what is that internal dialogue for you. And so, my internal dialogue was that I wasn't good enough, I didn't deserve. And I think that probably resonates with most people. And so to continue, even when bad things have happened or you've done bad things, to overcome those and to acknowledge why they may have happened, what's happened, to feel connected to it without running away from it, and to really understand the reasons behind everything and pull the thread as to where it originally originated is powerful, and allows a more of an open lens and a more of a understanding and a more of a compassion. Compassion is key in this situation of our voices and an inner critic, and compassion to be able to acknowledge those thought processes and be kind to them rather than berate them. Why are you here? Why do you stop me from doing this? Why can't I be better? If we have compassion, why do you feel that way? Gives a better dialogue, gives a compassion to self, gives an understanding, which can then create a better environment for yourself, which is what it has done for me and my family, to create that acknowledgement, acceptance, and, as I say, ultimately compassion. And compassion for self might seem selfish, however, I believe it's selfless, because that's where the growth begins. And I hope that with me saying these things, that you can start to have some compassion for yourselves and understanding of where those harsh messages have come from. And that isn't because of anybody doing anything, but we're all trying to do the best that we can. But the more we're able to open up and to acknowledge and to have more compassion and have more understanding and wider lens, as I use all the time, then maybe there's more compassion for growth and for society as a whole. My inner critic over the years has really been quite debilitating, in the fact that I was unable to appreciate myself as a whole. And Gabor Mate talks about trauma and about coming back to wholeness. And so I've suffered a tremendous amount of trauma in my childhood, from birth to all my life to a teenage. And so developmental trauma does create a lot of inner critics and demotivations and self-sabotage, and very difficult, or definitely that you're not, or I felt I wasn't good enough for anything. And so, and I was to serve at other people and a people pleaser. And so that was my journey, because that was what survival was for me. If I pleased my caregivers, therefore I survived. And I'm not saying, well, I was going to say, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but of course it was a bad thing, but equally it was a survival mechanism. And I survived because I'm still here talking to you. However, that inner critic has debilitated a lot of my life. I haven't been able to accept and acknowledge a lot of the things that maybe I could have done if I had had a nurturing, loving upbringing without such horrific abuse in every category. And to overcome that, I threw myself into therapy. I threw myself into going on a counselling course to understand, not to become a counsellor actually, but to understand what was going on for me. That was my main drive, to go on this counselling course, which I went on. There's level 2, level 3, level 4, and my hunger to continue to understand trauma better. I continued and went on numerous trauma courses to really understand, and everything that I learned was like, well, that's me. That's exactly me. That's what I'm doing. That's what I do. I talk to myself in such derogatory ways. I wouldn't speak to my worst abuser the way that I talk to myself. And it astonished me and enlightened me. And has been the most heartfelt, passionate journey for me to be able to know I wasn't going mad, because I did think I was going mad. I did think there was something wrong with me. I did think that you have you break your ankle, you break your back, or you have some serious physical injury, and there's a lot of understanding and supportiveness and rehabilitation. But I had that in my head. That's what happens when you have a breakdown. That's when you have trauma. That's what happens when you have depression. It's no different than a physical break. That and so, the inner critic for me was constant. That I wasn't good enough. I wasn't enough. I needed to do not. I needed to do more. Sorry. Yes, I needed to do more to please others. People pleasing. And so that was the journey I went on until I understood that that was what was ingrained in me. That was my survival technique to get me through my childhood experiences. And so when I gained that knowledge, to be able to understand that I didn't have to think like that, live like that, was, I want to say, a miracle, but that sounds a little bit drastic, but it was for me. It was a gift, an absolute gift of like, finally, I understand why. And it has been a godsend for me and for my family. And I'm truly blessed by knowing. And so when my inner critic, you can't stop the inner critic because it's so ingrained. And so when my inner critic does come in, as it did today when I went for a job interview, I'm not good enough, I can't do it, he's going to employ me, etc. I was able to balance that with I'm going to try. I don't get it. If I do, I do. And that's brilliant. But I'm going to try anyway. And I was so chuffed that I did it. And I don't know the outcome yet. I'll let you know. And so that's what has moved me and propelled me forward in having a more balanced view. So when the inner critic does come in, because it does, I'm able to give there a balance, that was your survival technique. And now this is my thriving technique, that I'm able to have compassion for that inner critic, but equally be the emotional parent that I never had, to be able to manage that and to not stop my growth continuing forward. And I hope that anything that I've said tonight will resonate with you. And please contact if you require any more advice or assistance or any way I can help.